The nation Nigeria has over the years been having relationship with other countries, as well as being a member of different international organizations. The purpose of these diplomatic relations is to strengthen the economic and political and other sectors of the nation, as well as contribute our own quota to the development of other countries. But the question is, of what relevance has Nigeria's relationship with other countries been? Nigeria, have we been utilizing the various resources made available through these various international organizations? This would be our discussion on today's edition of Trending from the Stables of Pensioners 106.7 FM. As we'll discuss the topic, Nigeria's diplomatic relations, as well as the issue of neocolonialism. On behalf of the producer of Trending, Babatunde Tiamio, the DC on duty, Seun Awoyemi MC Prince, as well as the entire members of the production crew, I am Israel Dejumabi. I welcome you once again to Trending on Pensioners 106.7 FM. All right, I also have my guest right here with me in the studio, but just before I introduce my guest and get into the program proper this morning, I'll be taking a short break. We'll be right back. All right, so welcome back. It's Trending live on Pensioners 106.7 FM. Like I said, this morning on the show, we're talking about diplomatic relations, Nigeria's diplomatic relations, as well as the issue of neocolonialism. I have my guest right here with me in the studio. Joining me in this conversation is a public relations expert, as well as a political analyst. I have with me Mr. Adesumbo Badejoko. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure being here.
This morning. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's get straight to business this morning. Let's talk about it. Starting with this, your general comment as regards Nigeria's diplomatic relations, especially from the angle of Nigeria's foreign policy. You know, Nigeria's foreign policy is hinged on some certain indices. Okay, we have equality of our states, we have non-alignment, we have multilateralism, we have non-interference in domestic affairs. So now, based on all of these indices, would you say that our foreign policy in Nigeria is working?
Actually, it's been going back and front. There was a time in the history of this country that we actually made progress in the area of foreign policy. And there was another period where we were stagnant. And of recent, we've been struggling, so to speak, because, foreign policy is supposed to hinge on the national interest. There is no foreign policy of any country that is against the national interest. In fact, that is what would inform it. That's what will give the direction to it. Yeah, the items you listed, that was what informed our foreign policy. But of late, you look at those indices and you begin to wonder how far have we fared in terms of not getting involved in the internal affairs of other countries. If you look at the activities of this present government with Niger Republic, or for instance, you begin to put some question mark on that particular clause. But in terms of diplomatic relationship, dispute resolution, cultural exchange, and what have you, that actually that international relation involved, we've not really been doing bad.
Okay.
Considering our role in peace mission all over the world, especially in the West African sub-region. But whether or not we've benefited much from that, that's another question entirely. If you ask me, I'll say we have not really benefited the way we ought to have benefited from the effort that we've contributed as far as our foreign relation is concerned.
Now, of course, Nigeria also has a duty, part of our foreign policy. In fact, one of the basics of our foreign policy or our diplomatic relations is that we want to do well in ensuring that other African countries develop, because Nigeria is the giant of Africa. So would you say that in terms of our contributions from other African countries, we have been doing so well?
We've been doing well.
Okay.
Because except we in the areas where we are not involved. But to the areas where we've been involved, and we started way early in our nationhood. Go back to 1960. Nigeria played significant role in the peace mission in Congo DR. Now that was the very first attempt, and of course, the likes of General Aguirre was commanded the forces over there, the peace mission forces. That already started our presence as, in peacekeeping mission all over. I mean, in the global stage. And after that, we've been involved in several other international disputes in the area of donating forces to participate in the peace mission efforts. Then, in terms of finances, too, we've actually played significant role. Nigeria could say we could boast to have championed the fight against the apartheid regime in South Africa. We could boast to have been the brain behind the formation of ECOWAS. And we played significant role in 1963, early 60s, when the Organization of African Unity was being established, which is now known as the African Union. So all this within the African sub-region, we really played that giant role. Because we are talking about foreign relation. Yes, we've had problem with leadership internally, which has actually denied us most of the benefit that we ought to have gotten from this. And we, of course, our leaders too have not learned from the masters of the game, the US of this world, the France of this world, and the Britain of this world. They don't go for mission without a string attached. We've not really been attaching any string. We just use this Father Christmas approach, spend all the money. We will not be involved in the building process of the country. Our businessmen will not play any role in the business. Like, for instance, Sierra Leone and Liberia, that were for several years involved in civil war. And now these countries are peaceful. Nigeria played a very significant role to ensure there was peace in those countries. But how many of our investors are actually reaping the benefits in those countries? How many of our Nigerian-owned companies played significant role in the building of those countries, the rebuilding of those countries? What is even the current diplomatic relationship between Nigeria and these countries that we have labored so much? Or is it South Africa that you want to talk about? Do we deserve any form of xenophobic attack? Or do Nigerian citizens deserve any form of xenophobic attack from South African citizens, with the government not doing much about it, despite the huge role we played in ensuring that the apartheid regime was brought to an end in that country? So these are things that that made me to say that we've not really benefited the way we ought to consider. But in terms of playing the role, we have actually tried to be the big brother in Africa. Because we are the most populous, we are the most endowed. It's just that we have internal problems right now. And part of what we have not reaped in terms of benefit was to enjoy the cooperation of our neighbors, even right now that we are now challenged with insurgencies. So these are things that we should be looking at, and of course we want to put the blame at the doorstep of the leadership.
Okay, now as regards our xenophobia, because you raised that, issue right now. Now, it is alleged that some Nigerians are actually involved in all sort of criminal activities over there, and that is what is responsible for what we are seeing. Do you believe that?
Of course, criminality is something that is not peculiar to Nigerians. And
Okay.
it would be wrong for the South African government to now say that, okay, the xenophobia was as a result of the criminal activities Nigerians have. They have laws, for crying out loud. What happened to their laws? How come those criminals, quote and unquote, were not subjected to their due judicial process? How come they allow their citizens to now be the ones to take laws into their hands? So that puts a question mark on that theory. So which means it's not about the criminal tendencies of Nigerians. Those who are culpable should be dealt with. But what happens to people going about their lawful business? What happened to people who were just walking on the street? We saw images, we saw videos of these attacks on Nigerians. And you can't tell me that the set of people that we saw that were being attacked are actually criminals. So it would be wrong for anybody to just conclude on that assertion that it's as a result of Nigerians committing crimes.
All right, now let's talk about ECOWAS, for example, the Economic Community of West African States. And at some point, lawmakers in Nigeria said, "We'll withdraw. It is time for Nigeria to withdraw." As you know, from as regards ECOWAS membership, saying that ECOWAS has not been, we have not been benefiting anything as such from ECOWAS, in spite of our huge and humongous contributions to these communities, to this organization. It's as though we are not getting anything in return. Your reaction as regards that?
That is correct because, and there's a reason behind it. ECOWAS is a union of West African countries. There are 16 countries in all. And out of these 16 countries, only 5 are English speaking. You have one Portuguese speaking country, and the rest were French, Francophone Africans. Now, all the Francophone countries are still, they are still tied to the apron of France, if I may use that expression. And they are not fully independent. You understand? And France has a very strong influence in their own foreign relations. And by extension, it means France determines what the Francophone, they will determine the extent at which the Francophone countries would cooperate with their neighbors within the sub-region. And now Nigeria being the biggest Anglophone country, the biggest English-speaking country, if not the wealthiest among them, and of course the initiator of the whole idea of ECOWAS, that has been putting us at variance with France in terms of relations. And what are the 4 things that even brought about ECOWAS? We're supposed to be having trade relations, cultural exchange, and what have you, tourism. Now, trade has been frustrated for a very long time. Why? Because all these countries are dumping ground of goods produced in France, meaning that they only import from France. They get all their supplies. The French companies are the ones manufacturing in their countries. Now, if we are going to be saying we're signing a trade agreement with, say, Cote d'Ivoire, for instance, we are indirectly signing trade agreement with France. And we are supposed to have a direct relation with France, not an indirect relations with France. We have some direct relations with France, trade relations. But what happens? They will prefer to channel whatever supplies they have through these Francophone countries and now want to smuggle into Nigeria. Why? This is where the population is, and by extension, the market. They cannot consume everything that is being dumped in their doorstep. So they have to look for where to dispose of them. And that is why. And when you look at all this, it's having a negative effect on our own balance of trade. And by extension, our currency value. So these are areas where economically we've not really been benefiting. And when there is a crisis within the sub-region, the same France would not want to, especially if the crisis is not involving any of the Francophone country. Now, luckily, apart from Nigeria, the other Anglophone countries have been peaceful, relatively. but it is the francophone that are now turbulent. Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, they are all having internal crisis, political instability as we speak. And the Tuareg crisis in Mali is fueling the problem that we are facing in terms of insurgency. Because a good number of these so-called bandits that we have their origin in all this domain. They have no border restriction in terms of their movement into the country, just flocking and out and contributing to our own internal security challenges. So, and France is not really helping the situation because, for instance, they have a base in Chad. Chad is one of the countries bordering Nigeria, where Boko Haram is a major challenge. What is the contribution of that particular army base or military base that they have in Chad to our own effort at combating insurgency? So these are problems that France has been contributing to our own internal challenges. So, and when you look at that, and you look at it by extension to the West African sub-region, you begin to wonder, should we really remain? And of course, of recent, can you imagine Morocco, all the way from the north, is planning to join ECOWAS? Morocco is also a country that has strong influence. I mean, that France has strong influence on. You understand? And when you look at this, that means Morocco, because of the industrial status they have, is now being used to check the dominance of Nigeria, if that is allowed. And that's why some people, diplomats, are saying that, okay, if Morocco will come in, then Nigeria will have to leave. And I say it here, if Nigeria leaves ECOWAS, that is the end of it.
So you believe we should withdraw?
I believe we should not withdraw.
Okay.
But if the neighbors would not cooperate, then it's as good as just disbanding the whole thing and just sticking to African Union.
Now, still talking about Nigeria's contribution to some other African countries. Now, at some point, it was reported that the Nigerian government donated vehicles worth 1.4 billion naira to Niger Republic. At this point in time, when the Academic Staff Union of Universities is on strike currently, and then so many other things going on in the country right now that demands some economic investment. Now, don't you think it's actually misplaced priority for Nigerian government to be so concerned about what goes on in the Niger Republic at a point in time when some things are not working right here in Nigeria?
Well, that is exactly what it is.
Okay.
Misplaced of priorities.
Okay.
But we should be concerned in what happens in the Niger Republic. Why? It has the largest border with Nigeria. Of all our neighbors, Niger has the largest borderline with Nigeria. And by extension, our security concern is also involved. Though that was what the government leveraged the donation on. But the fact that it wasn't properly thought out and critical stakeholders were not involved in the so-called decision is a big flaw on the part of the government. But of course, we know the border along that line is porous. Niger too could not secure the border up north with their own neighbors, Algeria, and of course, Burkina Faso and Benin Republic. So, and you see these criminals, enjoy a free movement along the Sahel region, and it's like that is a region that is ungoverned. No country have full control over that entire space. And all the country along the region, as we speak, are having one form of internal security challenge or the other. So, but in terms of the donation, it's a misplaced priority because we've been borrowing to finance our budgets. We've been having revenue shortage. We have so many pending issues like the ASUU strike. Apart from the ASUU strike, there are so many. The enemy has been meeting with the government. They could also go on strike very soon. We have so many things that are pending internally that requires finances. And of course, you can't be good elsewhere if you're not good at home. That is Bill Clinton saying.
Okay, now let's talk about this. Now, Queen Elizabeth's death, it's Actually, it was a news that was everywhere. I mean, since last Thursday, when it was reported that Queen Elizabeth II died, you know, at the age of 96 at Balmoral. And of course, many there has been there have been various words coming from different quarters to mourn the late queen. But some people believe that the queen is actually not to be celebrated in the history of Africa, as far as African history is concerned, because she was part and parcel of the apartheid in South Africa and so many atrocities that took place during the colonial period. Now, in your own perspective, do you believe that Queen Elizabeth II should not be mourned in the African continent?
I don't believe that.
Okay.
Whether we like it or not, she's a world leader and deserves to be mourned globally.
Okay.
We are talking about the death here. And a good number of the allegations levied against her were not actually committed by her. Just so many misinformation housed there. And of course, people who are ignorant of the history and fact abide into it, and they are also fueling that line of thought, which I personally do not believe. We should actually commiserate with the British government and the entire Commonwealth of Nations.
Okay. So you don't want to believe in the various stories, flying around as regards the fact that, well, she was part of some of the atrocities that took place during the colonial era and all of that.
Queen Elizabeth was a British monarch. The UK has a government.
Okay.
She is the head of government, but not involved in the day-to-day running of the government. For instance, she is not the one that appoints the foreign secretary. Okay. She's not the one that's involved in immigration policy. It is the prime minister and the cabinet that does that. And the cabinet is made up of members elected by the people into the House of Commons. So they are the politicians. They are the ones that get involved in foreign relations and what have you. Yes, the British monarch used to be a sovereign monarch back then in those days. But this particular queen has more of being a liberal-minded monarch. For instance, when people hear the queen, there is huge misplacement between Queen Victoria, that actually did the conquest of Africa and the entire British Empire in her days. But she died in 1903. Queen Elizabeth became queen in 1952. In between them, there were 3 kings that were men. And she was the one that gave Nigeria independence. And she didn't struggle with us to say, no, you can't have your independence now. So, if you look at that, and we only spent 3 years under her influence. How do I mean? 1963, we became a republic. And by virtue of the Constitution of 1963, the Queen was no longer the head of government of Nigeria. But till date in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Jamaica and what have you, the Queen, or now the King, is still the head of state in all of those places. You understand? But since 1963, Nigeria had removed the influence of the Queen in our government. People will argue that, okay, they still have their companies in place controlling our economy. Yes, they were the ones that were already established. But along the line, as indigenous companies grew, they were competing with them. And I need to remind that the Obasanjo military regime in 1978 or thereabouts institutes a nationalization policy, or is it an indigenization policy, that took those assets and convert them to Nigerian companies. And since then, it has been, that was what laid the foundation of our not having good diplomatic relation with Britain. And even before it did that, we've stopped spending the British pounds, the African pounds, in 1973, when Naira was introduced. People will say that's as a result of the Civil War. And so people are saying, well, she didn't really intervene much in the Civil War, that they ought to have. But those who know the story right there, would know that Ojukwu wouldn't have listened to anybody because he wanted to be head of state.
Well, the president, Muhammadu Buhari, said that the Queen actually contributed her own quota as regards during the Civil War, from 1967 to 1970. She was in support of the Nigerian government fighting for the unity of Nigeria.
And people of Biafra will not see that as being fair. Because when you support the Nigerian government, that means you are not supporting them. And of course, you will understand the British government back then because they just gave independence to this nation. They have to see that the nation does not disintegrate within a short while. That's what informed the support. Go back to Congo DR. About the same period, Belgium also did not want the Katanga province that was trying to break away from Congo Democratic Republic. That chance, they blocked the secession move by Moise Tshombe with everything they have. Yes, and because there's insinuation that historians are arguing that, well, they caused the problem in the initial stage by ensuring that they removed, what is it called now? Patrice Lumumba, that was the head of state then. But eventually, they still ensured that they had a puppet government in place that later run the country. Now, how the man eventually govern is another thing. African leaders have a common problem, and that is one, their lack of vision, and their lack of patriotism to their respective states, and that's contributed to the underdeveloped state of the entire region, as we speak.
All right, now let's look at this statement from the one of the presidential candidates right now, Omoyele Sowore, saying that Nigeria should actually withdraw. If he becomes the president, one of the first things he will do is that he will take Nigeria away from the Commonwealth of Nations, saying that it is of no relevance to Nigeria, except that Nigerians will be given free visas to the UK. What's your reaction to that?
I understand where it's coming from. And I actually believe that Nigerians' diplomatic relation with Britain ought to have been restored back to that level. But it is the government of the day. You can't just make the pronouncement or make the demand from the British government. It doesn't work that way. You will have to put some things in place. For instance, we have to fight corruption. If we keep hearing billions and we are not seeing the effects or the impact of those billions in our society, we will still be collecting visa because they do not see us as serious country yet. You understand? But they also have, we need to secure, we need to ensure that the CBN fight and the EFCC too combat the high issue of money laundering. Because there is this argument that, okay, when they are bringing the money into the economy of the UK, why are they collecting it from them? And I said, logically, if someone wants to buy something from you, do you care whether the person has stolen the money? Or will you not bother to investigate? You want to sell your wares. You buy the thing, and if later it was found out that the money has been stolen and you want to return the goods, that will be later, but you've made your own profit from it. You will return the money and you will have used the money for other business. That is what has been happening. And that's why we are still getting Abacha loot up till now, despite the fact that the man has died since 1998. So, and it's like that. We should first of all look inward. Countries that have developed, that were our contemporaries, Singapore for instance, gave zero tolerance to corruption. The Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew ensured that every corrupt tendencies was destroyed from at the foundation level. They were not allowed to develop. You understand? Even the Yorubas will say, "Tile kan ba n toro ọmọ àlè ibẹ̀ ni ò tí dàgbà." In Nigeria, gbogbo àwọn ọmọ àlè yẹn ló ti dàgbà báyìí. And they are the ones giving us problem. We ought to have dealt with all these tendencies when they were at latent stage. But what happened? The military ensured that corruption became legal in this nation.
So we shouldn't blame. So what you are saying is that we shouldn't.
We
blame
cannot
some of these
put
countries
all these countries. We can't put 100%
for being a
blame.
dumping site for the looted funds here.
I've told you the rationale behind it. If Nigeria too have developed, okay, we blame them. How about nobody's blaming Switzerland? Of course, you can't tell me We don't used to hear about Swiss Bank in those days. But now we are looking at UK. We're not looking at US. Why? Because the US has a very strong stance against money laundering. So they would not really accept it that much. And if you go back to their history, they were not really interested in imperialism. You can understand them if you understand American history very well. They too were a product of imperialism. So there's no way they would like the idea. But they believe one thing, exerting their influence in playing the role of the police of the world. That is what the US have been doing, and some of us will see that as well. That is new imperialism, because you are not there to colonize them directly, but you are playing major influence in their economic activity, ensuring that their trade relation is favorable to you, playing an enabling ground, ensuring that they open their market for you to come in and dump all manner of things. But even at that, they have not in any way prevented us from developing our industries. It is the government of respective African countries that have refused to do that because of corruption. So we will not put 100% blame on all of that. Ghana at some point got it right when they had a leader that was visionary and patriotic at the same time, Jerry Rawlings. You understand? He was able to depart from the old order and set Ghana on the path of a new order. And that is what they've been following till the very date. We've not had a chance of having such an individual emerge as the leader of Nigeria since
we
independence.
Stop blaming other countries because we are responsible for our own woes right here.
Of course, our sovereignty has been intact. It has not been questioned. It has not been violated in any way. And of course, we have also been playing major roles in the affairs of other countries. You understand? So if we have that capacity, we can't be blaming others for our woes. We really should look inward and see how we would develop ourselves. How we'll harness all the potentials. Our doctors are going out because they do not have an enabling environment, not because they are not qualified. In 2011, I was given an assignment in UCH to help computerize the data of the alumni. And while I was doing that assignment, I discovered that a good number of doctors, there are as at 1958, 59, 60, up to 64, foreigners, Indians, Pakistanis were trained at this UCH. UCH. Now imagine, UCH was built by the British government. You understand? And up till now, we still do not have another UCH in the whole of the country. We have something similar, but not exactly the way it is. We should have that by now in every state of the Federation. And when you have that well-equipped facilities, our doctors will not go anywhere. And when you pay them very well. Of recent, the Vice President has proven that our doctors are qualified and we have equipment, but we are not taking good care of them. When he decided to treat himself in the shores of this country. And that was a major surgery that he embarked upon. Ordinary headache, some people will have to go to France or UK to go and treat it. So all these are not helping the psyche of the medics, and of course, the economy of the country. And it's putting a question mark on our seriousness as a nation.
Okay. All right. Now let's look at this coming from the European Union. The European Union on Monday disclosed that it had so far committed 150 million euros on elections in Nigeria since the return of the nation's ongoing democratic experiments. Besides, the organization said 39 million euros has been earmarked to support the nation's electoral process beginning from 2022 to 2027. Now, every now and then we keep hearing all sort of figures coming from some of these, international organizations, to Nigeria, and then we'll keep asking, are we really utilizing these resources?
The question you should first ask is, are those money given to INEC? Those money were not given to INEC. They were spent by their agents that are here, NGOs that they sponsor, to use to monitor the elections for them. Not that they use it to support the Nigerian government in any way, or give it to the security agencies or INEC. INEC still gets its funds from that they use for elections since 1999 from the purse of the federal government. So they should just keep quiet and stop quoting figures to confuse people out there. You understand? They should, though, in the area of developmental process, we've enjoyed some grants and aids for education, for health, for infrastructure at different points in time. And that will always take us back to corruption. And when money is given and they do not see the result of that money, it's either they don't give up to that amount or they don't give at all. Or they look for serious countries to go give the money to. So these are challenges that we have been facing. And of course, like I said earlier, there are some things that we are not comfortable with as a nation. Personally, me too. I'm not comfortable with. If you want to even go back to UK relations, like Showore is saying, there are some things that he is saying that is not that is right, but the government of the day is what will decide whether those things will continue or they will have to stop.
Now, let's look at Nigeria's relationship with China. Our relationship with China has been hinged on continuous and incessant borrowing every now and then. We keep borrowing. Now, are we not further? Is this not another form of neocolonialism?
That is the way it will end up.
Okay.
If we do not take caution. China appears to be the only one willing to help. But where the government is at fault is this. You are borrowing on our behalf. We need to know the terms of those loan agreements so that we'll know what we are in for. You understand? There's a particular Eastern country, East African country that had lost an entire coastal region to China because of borrowing. And seeing what happened to that country, the neighboring country too, when China was coming with such loan, said no, it is only an insane government that will take this kind of loan from you. You understand? But we are not hearing Nigerian government giving us the details of the agreement. They will just tell us, this is what we are doing with the Chinese loan. Yes, we see what you are doing with the Chinese loan, but what are the terms of payment? What were the strings that were attached to this loan? We want to know, because China, as a country that we all know, will not do anything for free. They will also always want to get something in return. And that is where the government need to come out playing.
Well, I talked about last year, Uganda was at the brink of losing their airports to China, although the Ugandan government at some point said no such thing will take place. But don't you think we are going to be in such situations as well if we are not careful with the way we are borrowing?
But as I'm optimist that I am, I wouldn't pray that we find ourselves in such situation. We would only say it and we keep echoing it so that the next government, whichever one, which of the candidates that will emerge, will know that these are issues that Nigerians are concerned about, and they must do something about it. So we will not, because the next administration will not enjoy any honeymoon from Nigerians. They will not show any sympathy.
What do you mean by that? Honeymoon?
What I mean by honeymoon is this. Buhari took some drastic measures in 2015 to 2016 that were very harsh on the Nigerian populace, but we did not complain. People endured that, thinking that's the sacrifice we have to make to later enjoy. But we never enjoyed the benefits. So we will not accept any of such endurance. We won't tolerate it from the next government. So the government, whoever wins among them, should have that at the back of his or okay, there's no female candidate. His mind. You understand? And they will have to be thinking now on how to source for sanative revenue and how to block the leakages and how to enhance our capacity as a nation to generate wealth. So that will remove us at the mercy of countries like China or any other country that is out there giving us loan on conditions.
Okay, now, in spite of the huge debt loan we have at this point in time, as reported by the Debt Management Office, that our debt ratio right now, or the figures, is actually humongous. Nigeria government is still planning to borrow.
Because
do you think we should be engaged in such venture?
Because we are lazy. this government is among the laziest that we've ever had. What do I mean by being lazy? You know, you need to think outside of the box. There was a finance minister that this government appointed. Throughout our stay, IMF came, World Bank came. You need loan to do these things fast. We'll borrow you loan. She will tell them, we can sort our problem by ourselves. We don't need your loan. And somehow, because some people, unpatriotic, disgruntled elements in the government, are not comfortable with her decisions, she was edged out. And they left this one that is there now, who knew nothing else but what? Borrowing. And ever since she came up, we've been borrowing endlessly. You understand? So we are our own problem, and we shouldn't be blaming any other person for it. And it all borders on leadership, because this set of people were allowed by the president himself. He has the power to remove them. He has refused to remove them. And whatsoever they do under his watch, he will be the one to take the blame for it, because people will always point to Buhari administration, not to a particular minister.
Well, several years after independence, Nigeria cannot be said to be truly independent. You know, as some analysts would say, okay, we're still relying on products, foreign products, imported goods and all of that. Refinery not working right here, although the Nigerian government has promised that next year things will take a different turn as far as that is concerned. Now, when are we going to break free from the shackles of neocolonialism this time around?
When we get the leadership right. This was not how we started. Cocoa House that you see there is the first skyscraper in the whole of Africa. That was not built by British government. It was built by a Nigerian, the premier of the Western region as at that time. Nigeria enjoyed television service before Spain and some other countries in Europe. And that was the first in Africa too. That Liberty Stadium does not carry liberty as a title. It was the first. When you have good leaders, visionary leaders in place, things would work. But what happened? It was a regional leader. He wanted to be the national leader. He was denied. And some people later realized, and they said he was the best president Nigeria never had. Because they knew that if he had carried that vision to nationalize it, we will not be saying what we are saying now. Now, over the years rather, we've been having people with similar virtue, even in this next election. But we would always choose wrongly, because some people has designed and developed a way to influence the mind of the electorate to always ensure that it is that counterfeit they want to sell that we buy. And at the end of the day, they will be the one to benefit from the misgovernance, and the nation will be the one to suffer. So many things are wrong. I told you UCH trained the pioneer doctors in India and Pakistan. The records are there. Anybody can go to the alumni office in UCH. You see them there. It's not that somebody is fabricating this thing. How come our citizen now will have to be subjected to all manner of conditionalities before going for further studies? To get admission into English-speaking countries that we are member of the same Commonwealth, will be subjecting our students to writing language tests. Look at that embarrassment. When we have someone in Nigeria who had gotten a Nobel Prize in literature, and you are saying the country that produced a Nobel laureate in literature should be writing language tests. You understand what I'm saying here? That is the peak of embarrassment that our government has caused this nation. And it's about leadership. Whether or not we'll continue to be colonized by these people, it is the government of the day that will determine that. Uganda got the independence about the same time. But they later had a madman as head of state who was forcing white men to be carrying him on their shoulder, carrying his chair on their shoulder, to prove that, yes, he prized himself as the conqueror of British Empire in his days. Yeah, of course, history will say he's a terrible man. But the truth is, he became mad because of what the colonial powers had done to their nation. And he fought alongside some of them during the war, and he saw that these people are not gods, they are human beings like us. So why should they be treating us this way? And he decided to make changes. We also started very well, like I said, but we began to struggle among each other. If Ojukwu had not, if he had worked on his ego, we would not have had a civil war. That war took us way back to pre-colonial period, and we have to start struggling. And up till now, we are still struggling. We have not recovered from it. So that's the problem of bad leadership.
Now, one of the challenges facing Nigeria at the moment, in fact, one of the major challenges bedeviling Nigeria is the issue of insecurity. Now, why is it that it's as though the international organizations seems to be silent as regards our situation?
They are not silent.
Or
They
it
are,
appears so?
they are looking at our seriousness. For instance, a right-thinking person will know that our military institution is better than that. Those army officers are well prepared and well trained to combat insurgency. They've done it in other countries. So why can't they do it in their own country? It is because the political leadership is encouraging this insurgency to fester. Those who are close to them will not like to hear what I'm saying. But I am close to some military personnel, and I know that these people are well trained. An average soldier can handle 20 bandits single-handedly, even without a weapon, with the kind of training that he has. But if somebody along the rank is not sabotaging their effort by leaking the intels, by telling them the route for them to be ambushed, by changing the order given to them at the point of implementation, we would have forgotten about insurgency by now. So don't let anybody deceive you, and don't let us put those things at the doorstep of international community. The only country I would blame is France. But when you remove France from the whole thing, France did not tell us not to secure our borders. But some people would not secure the borders, and they are getting paid for that on a daily basis. So do we blame other countries for those immigration officers who will not check every riffraff that crosses our border? Or we blame the custom? We should not blame the custom officers who will not check every cargoes. And they know all the routes that smuggling takes place. But they will go there, collect money, and pass them. And they bring those things into the country. Those bandits comes into the country to perpetrate evil. The new media will carry it. Everybody will be making noise. Look, if people are doing their own role, security begins with you and I. You see something, you don't keep quiet. Move to the next person, the security agency that are supposed to tackle these things. When they get the information, they shouldn't give any excuses. You understand? And why should we have a centralized policing system and we called ourselves a federal state? That is an aberration. All crimes are local and should be combated in a local way. If state government are the one providing utility vehicles for the police and even some paramilitary organizations, why don't you allow them to set up state policing, local government policing? That will be more effective in a federal system. If you keep saying that they would use it to witch hunt, you retain a federal to supervise the activity, but allow the existence of the state police so that criminals will not be enjoying freedom that they are enjoying now.
Right now.
That is what has made the issue of insecurity to fester. And when there is insecurity in any nation, what you have is stagnation.
All right, let's open the studio lines for people to be part of the conversation this morning. 0908 111 1067, 0908 111 1067, 0805 908 1067, 0908 111 1067, 0805 908 1067. Those are the numbers to call to be part of the conversation this morning. You can also call the studio lines and give your thoughts. You can drop your comments as well on our Facebook page, Pensioners FM. Once you type Pensioners FM on your Facebook app, you have the chance to watch us live and also give your comments as regards our discussion this morning, which centers around Nigeria's diplomatic relations and, of course, neocolonialism in Nigeria. 0908 111 1067 0805 908 1067. Now, let me ask this question: what can be done to further leverage on our diplomatic relations with other countries? Okay, let's pick this call. Someone is on the line. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, we lost that. Okay, so Mr. Barijoko, let's look at that. What can we do to further leverage on this relationship? Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Your name and where you calling
Please,
from?
I don't care.
All right.
I want to talk about the federal government. They keep borrowing money from China. Yes, there is nothing to show for it. As we all know that ASU is on strike, it's been up to 8 months now that ASU is on strike. So why can't the money that they are borrowing, why can't they use it judiciously? Though it is expected to borrow, there is no state or even country that does not borrow. But the federal government, APC administration, nothing to show for their own borrowing. They just keep on summing up all the debt upon debt. So it's only God that can show us the way out here in Nigeria. Thank you very much. I didn't care.
Thank you so much for calling into the show. 0908 111 1067 0805 908 1067. So, what can we do?
We need to get leadership right.
Okay.
Right leadership will put right pegs in the right holes. We'll first of all begin to look internally to solutions to our problems. And by the time we begin to do this, when our neighbors discover that we are no longer at their mercy, they'll begin to take us seriously. In fact, they will now be the one to change the terms of our diplomatic relation. That will give us a better say in the Committee of Nations. And it would restore back our pride as the giant of Africa. But if we keep failing at that level, that means you keep having people who do not have the interests of the nation at heart. And when you have people like that in government, they don't understand what national interest is. What they have in their head is ethnic bigotry, religious sentiments, and what have you. Then they will not take critical decisions. They will not be balanced in their policies. They will always make lopsided policies that would be frustrated by the other group. You understand? That is how to run a federal nation like Nigeria. So we need to really improve upon that. You can imagine us having a government that would fund education the way it is. How can we have close to 200 universities now, public, private, and state, federal, and private universities? Close to 200. And yet, we are still having issues of people going abroad for further studies. That is insane. You understand? What is the demon behind our power sector that we have to be importing generator every single day? Why can't we fix the power and ensure that wealth is generated? You understand what I'm saying? Maybe the government do not know that if they fix power, it will reduce a lot of pressure on them. All those going about hunting for government jobs will not go and hunt for government job. And when people stop chasing government job, the recurrent expenditure of government will naturally be reduced. You understand what I'm saying? They should also improve on that by also cutting the cost of governance. What I know in the United States that we are copying is that they have secretary supervising department of government, just the secretary and the career officers within the department. You do not have arrays of advisor. In fact, apart from the National Security Advisor, I don't think there is any other significant advisor in the U.S. government. But what do we have in Nigeria? The advisors are even more than the cabinet ministers. And they all take salaries from the government. And what exactly are they doing? Nothing other than saying they are taking their own share of the national cake. So these are areas where we are wasting money. Ditto to the state level, ditto to the local government level, which is more or less moribund. You understand? When we streamline our resources, we manage it very well, put people we think, form a think tank they will take radical decisions and things will begin to move. It's like if they are performing magic. No, and it's just because you have put the right people there. That's the way it is. After all, you have people who are managing businesses that have really expanded to the extent that they have branches in other African countries. Look at the Dangote group, for instance. So we need people like with the brain of a Dangote in the government that would really manage the resources that we have in a very prudent manner to bring out results.
All right, I must thank you so much, Mr. Adesumbo Badejoko, a public relations expert as well as a political analyst. Thanks for being with me on this show this morning. Thanks for honoring our invitation.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your lovely exposition on Nigeria's diplomatic relations. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And to our dear listeners, thanks so much for being a part of Trending on Pensioners 106.7 FM. Many thanks to all those who dropped their comments on our Facebook page. Gombi Ade Sharif, Sadiq, along with Wali Lai, Badmos, Akinwale, Ojo Mary. Thank you all for dropping your comments on our Facebook page. All right, this is where we're drawing the curtains on today's edition of the program. Once again, thank you for being a part of the program. On behalf of the producer of Trending, Babatode Tiamio, the DC on duty, Shin Aoyemi MC Prince, as well as the entire members of the production crew, I am Israel Dejumobi. Trending returns next week. Until then, stay blessed. Bye.